Oh yeah, as you can imagine, the debate continued even when we were on off air. And welcome back. It's the Face Off. Thank you for keeping with us. And if you have just joined us, Baguma Tinka Simira Richard. I'm hosting, standing in for Peter Chivazo, David Pulko, Bagarukayo Nwavine, Tegure Gawaya, and Charles Rumshana.
The Almighty God is great.
On the panel tonight. We were just talking about the situation in the country, the different incidents in different parts of the country. Others call them dots, others call them lines, others think they are circles, and others see curves, whatever. But I would like to wind down this section of the security, and then we continue with the other topics we promised to discuss, we promised our audience to discuss. Charles, you were moving on now.
Yes.
I would like to listen to you. Thank you very much for painting the pictures you have painted. Going forward, any proposals on any solution?
Oh, yes. When we grew up, if someone said something and you really want to provoke, to put that person to size, or that person to determine his or her own size, you would say, Chigarichim. If you are a man, repeat.
Say it again.
Say it again. So, Mr. Museveni said the other day that the only time Uganda was peaceful was during the Mchwezi time, 500 years ago. And it's now peaceful. In other words, it's the Mchwezi incarnate. Now let him say it again.
David,
that Uganda is very peaceful. Let him say it again. Loud.
So the president is pursuing Chwezi nationalism.
But let him say again that Uganda. So someone, you know, we also say it. We also have it in our culture that if you are a man, say Niora. And when someone says Niora, then you move on him. So someone is saying Niora, precisely because his narrative is under challenge. And all in all, I would urge the parties to the conflict to show maximum restraint, not kill women and children. And also urge the parties to this conflict to go for a ceasefire and go for negotiations.
What conflict are you talking about?
Now, listen, Chief. Because
this is an interesting chance to come. Yes, yes. Solutions?
Solutions
yes. Proposals?
Are twofold. I think we've just come out of an election. The response I'm seeing from government doesn't seem to be helpful. Because whereas the president, in the case of Rwenzori, said he could see the machete wielding, and then the uninformed, and then the parasites with their foreign backers. But he stops there. He doesn't give you who is this. And then he says, however, and they have crippled the tourism industry, the jobs, and so forth. However, one good thing, he is seeing East African resistance movement. Now, he doesn't define how East Africa, the East Africa have 5 countries.
David,
okay?
That doesn't sound like you are suggesting a solution.
No, but the solution is that why doesn't the president then, since he's seeing a solution in the East African resistance movement, which he has not defined, up to Zambia, Malawi, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, he can see. But the rest of us don't see this resistance movement, apart from those who are speaking a language that was not ours towards swearing in, and so but in our uniform. So are these part of the East African resistance movement? So I'm telling President Museveni, stay away from that. Pull this country together and unite the country. Stop talking about your Bachwezism, because not all of us are children of Bachwezi. And we also know from history the tragedy that befell the Bachwezi and how they had to flee from this land. Now, if you're bringing back Chwezism, which some of us are not part of, please know that Uganda is a melting pot of different ethnic nationalities who have constituted the country called Uganda. And all of us have a right to live in this country. Now, if you are then trying to Chwezi our politics, our security, our economy, then I think that's a dangerous path to go. Because definitely not all of us are descendants of the Bachwezi. And history teaches us what happened to Chwezi. What am I saying? Unity. And I'm saying unity, and let those in the government, let those in the government act like for all of us, and pull the country together, and let's all move forward together. And what am I saying?
Oh yeah, I think you need to wind up on what that one, and so that we give an opportunity
and I'm saying those in the area of security, particularly intelligence, I think I can see CMI being put aside. I can see ESO being put aside. It looks like...
So they need to?
It looks like Kaihura is where the emphasis is, even for intelligence.
So they need
and
to?
It looks like SFC is taking center stage. Now, it is worrying for me that that the Chief of Defense Forces, how many Chief of Defense Forces do we have?
David.
Does the Commander of Special Forces report to the Commander-in-Chief? And does Commander 1, Katumba Wamala, report to the Commander-in-Chief? So let's structure, let's streamline our security apparatus. Please don't create an army within an army. It is a recipe for disaster. Because in the case of Gaddafi,
David Procol,
he created an army within an army, and the consequences were dire. And I hear this again in Uganda. I'm telling, as a solution, don't go that route.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Nwabin, David will wind around the solution.
I think my prayer is that the people in charge of politics in this country, and now I'll be specific, Charles. The people in charge, the people in charge.
Some other regions are not allowed to pray from there. So
the people in charge of the people in charge of politics in this country, who many times are also in charge of security, or I don't know whether to put it the other way around, that they are the ones in charge of security end up taking charge of politics in this country.
The one at the gatekeeper.
But those who are looking after who are taking charge of security, in brackets, politics of this country, should not use these insurrections to victimize innocent political players in this country. It has happened before. It's beginning to happen. I see it happening again. I am not saying that politicians are insulated from any of these happenings, but I'm only asking for caution when it comes to dealing with suspects of this whole thing, because we may continue to see a lot of these things happening as a way of getting out to political dissent. You want to arrest every other I had a police spokesperson the other day saying, we are watching all these opposition MPs, we cannot let them free because we think, you know, you cannot assume that because Mishach is an FDC MP, then he must have something to do with an insurrection that happens in point A, point B. Exactly.
Where wasn't he? So
he was on the watch list. Probably I could be on the watch list, but at least my prayer is that we don't use that. We don't use that as a means of getting out to the politicians, to the political players whom we think we don't agree with. But also, I would want to see what happens, especially with within the political establishment. Now that we, for example, and I know we'll be talking about cabinet later, but now that we have a minister of security who the army spokesperson insists cannot tell the difference between a bullet and a tear gas canister, but is now coming to take charge of security. Never mind that he's a general, a two-star general at that. I don't know now what kind of security we'll be putting together.
Is that part of the solution?
At the end of the day. The solution would be, in that regard, those who think are in charge or who think are closer to the gate or to the altar also need to exercise some level of restraint in the different comments, in the different narratives they put across, in the different operations they are involved in one way or the other. You don't know what tomorrow holds. So be conscious how you play your today out.
You sound, all of you, to be intimidating Pastor Tegule. He's the most prayerful one here. You seem to be intimidating him to have... Can you have a less cautious response to the solutions that you might propose, Tegule?
No, I don't know whether cautious is the word, but I think there are three things I would like to point out. Number one, that truth is the first casualty of conflict.
This one is
whenever there is conflict, truth becomes the first thing to die. That nobody either knows the truth, or people will be anxious to hide the truth, and people will be benefiting from hiding the truth. So I think we need better intelligence in the country at such a time as this. I would not like to say I'm happy by any means just because I'm in the opposition. I think anything that happens in the country affects each one of us, and I would really like Ugandans to be calm and work together and see how we put this aside. So let there be better intelligence. Let us also have some better analysis by security. Let us see what are the different trajectories, if any, along which this conflict is playing out. I think we need to analyze that and then see how to tackle it at the bottom. But having said that, I also want to say this, that one wise man said that when injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes a duty. And at a time like this, when so many people feel oppressed and feel shortchanged, they feel they're getting the short end of the stick, I think we should not be surprised that some of these incidents are coming up. Because Chinua Achebe said, when you bring, the man who brings anti-infested firewood to the kitchen must not complain when he's visited by lizards. So if the president is involved and is actively pursuing suppression of human rights, suppression of freedoms, then you should not be surprised that these things are coming up at such a time as this. It is just natural. But I would wind up by saying this. As we struggle to get to the bottom of the matter, would like to urge government and the president to respect the rule of law. Those people who have been arrested, let us see a fair trial. Let us see their rights being upheld. Let us see no sign of torture as is happening in many cases. I think in Kireka, the former VCCU, there's a lot of torture that happens in that place. God help us. I think it's now Special Investigations Unit. Yeah. There's a lot of torture that happens there. We see it all the time. And this is a sad moment for this country. Amidst all this crisis and conflict, can we uphold the rule of law, freedoms, and human rights?
I'm told that, thank you, Tegule, you know Charles Rumshana was not too long ago in the places you're talking about. So he will probably at another forum or another time tell us about torture or lack of it. But I was told that during the discussions, you know, there was a lot of discussion and forums about how the cabinet will be constituted, who will be on it. I would see a lot of newspaper and social media photos. Yeah, and I hear that even one of them, Charles Rumshana's name appeared on one of those many cabinet lists. he's a potential minister or even more. Like you said, you don't know what will happen tomorrow. Charles, we are in the process of having a cabinet concluded eventually. Reports are that some 3 of the, how many are they?
83.
Whatever the number, have not come through the sieve of the parliamentary committee. That's what is coming out of that. But Charles, overall, your own take on the way the cabinet has been composed, or as at least proposed, if all passed by parliament, and what are your expectations, if any?
Yeah, this is not a cabinet. These are servants of a family or an extended family. If you do analysis, husband, wife, and then brother somewhere, then you have son somewhere, which makes
it's no longer Trinity now because they are 4. Okay. What is the 4? The ones who know English. Trinity is 3.
Community.
Okay.
You know, it's a trinity in terms of power configuration, not in terms of operations. Because as I said earlier, there were a consensus where they used to operate through the National Resistance Council, the NRA High Command, the NRA Council, and then later on the consensus, which merged with the CA consensus from the 1995 Constitution. All those were usurped and replaced by family consensus. The Amambaba's family and the Mr. Museveni family. And when you look at those families, it's a trinity. The father, the son, and the mother. No spirit.
No spirit.
No spirit. Then the other one, it is the father, the mother, and the daughter. there is also no spirit. But the other one has been banished. I think it is on earth. The other one now stays, and it's now extended. So you have the Rwamramas of this world, a hand of veterans somewhere in defense. You have the father-in-law of the son in the Trinity, in charge of defense now, to manage foreign affairs. Then you have the father who is in charge of culture, the Katondos, the dictionary, the culture, and then you have the brother somewhere in angels who is in charge of giving wealth, giving riches, and then the others. I think now I don't know the role of Naduli.
Minister without portfolio.
Without a job.
It went for us who belong to this group of the speaker, who visit the other places. You have
the ancestors.
You have a Mkongozi. When you are done with everything, there is a Mkongozi who is going to look for the herbs. I think that's Naduli. He is there with very many duties as a Mkongozi. So it is not cabinet. These are workers of, because you see, to form a cabinet, you must be president. To be president under this constitution, you must be legitimate. That's why a vice president does not stay for long. He only stays for a year to organize elections, because he has no legitimacy. The legitimacy is indirect. Is sharing in the legitimacy of the president. But when the president dies, the vice president stays for a while. For you to have a term, you must be legitimate. You must be a product of a free, fair, credible, and peaceful election. This one was not. It was not. So you cannot have a legitimate cabinet. But what you have is a group of persons, and by the way, even see it through them. Why are you giving UPCs nothing to wait? Give us.
Yeah.
Give us to do what? To eat. It's not about can we share responsibility to serve? No. It is, can we, now that you have usurped, you have rooted it from those who are not armed, can we share it? Who is going to take a bigger one? Who is going to take, and you know, he says it, I killed my own animal. Which animal did he kill? What is the definition of this animal?
Now, so, on that point, you talked about the UPC. David?
I think what I see
on taking some of these people from the UPC.
I think what I'm seeing here, like Romshana says, is this a cabinet? So it is made to look like broad-based, but actually it is bread-based. Mugati to bread, mugati. So who is invited to table to eat? So this is like you said, the narrative used to be servant leadership. But now it's like people have inherited the country. They own the country. These are heirs now. They are grabbers. They are predators. They loot. They are above the law. Their cases are always still being investigated. They never concluded. So so the system is busy creating its own carbon copies. Even when you go to Karamoja, it's like HIV/AIDS, which creates its own carbon cells, eating the body politic of our country. So who do you get? A minister for miniskirts, I don't know what, and those exposing their breasts and so forth, where we come from, where we were born. We were dressed like Jesus on the cross. So there
is a minister for miniskirts.
So I hear
and those exposed.
What I'm seeing, because what you